Hello, my name is John Anthony Bachmanwitz, and I'm with Safe Counseling Program, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my program. SAFE stands for Supportive Alliance for Family Empowerment. We also do business as Supportive Alliance. If you watch the entire presentation, you will be shown our theoretical orientation of the program, 6 ways to give love to yourself, a perspective on how to alleviate fear, the role emotional wounds play in our lives, a process to heal emotional pain, the importance of our thoughts, and how to control the outcomes of your life. I found there to be 10 core areas of conflict when people are involved in violence. I'd like you to think about which one of these apply to the perpetrator and which one applies to the recipient of abuse. The 10 core issues of conflict are: they are frightened, they have low self-esteem, they are emotionally wounded, they need to be emotionally healed, they blame the other for their unhappiness, they are unable to see how they give their power and responsibility for their lives to the other, they expect the other to make their lives fulfilled, they desperately want to be loved, they are unable to give themselves love, and they are unable to soothe themselves when feeling frightened, disappointed, or hurt. Which one of those do you think apply to the perpetrator? And which ones do you think apply to the recipient of the abuse? Well, it's been my experience that all 10 of them apply to both. They're both frightened, have low self-esteem, they're emotionally wounded, they both emotionally need to be healed, they both blame the other for their unhappiness, they both are unable to see how they give their power and responsibility for their lives to the other, they both expect the other to make their lives fulfilled, they both desperately want to be loved, they both are unable to give themselves love, and both are unable to soothe themselves when feeling frightened, disappointed, or hurt. So what we do at the SAFE program is we help people to learn how to identify and alleviate their fears. I'm not talking about just physical safety fear. There's the fear of losing something that I have, or the fear of not getting something I desire. So what happens is, as a person is interacting with another person and they have conflict, they have a fear of losing something that they have, or a fear of not getting something they desire. But they aren't always able to identify that fear, and they don't know how to alleviate that fear. So what they do is they turn that fear to anger, and then they take that anger and they direct it at somebody else, or they direct it at themselves, or they direct it at property or objects. What I'd like you to start to recognize and to see is how anger is always the secondary emotion. I don't care who you are or what you're angry about. Anger is always the secondary emotion. So that means it's preceded by a primary emotion. That primary emotion could be sadness, disappointment, could be shame or embarrassment, concern, or fear. And what I find is that one of those emotions that always comes before anger is fear. It's the fear of losing something that I have, or the fear of not getting something I desire. So what happens is, as a person's interacting with another person, something happens and they get frightened. Then they get angry. Then they react. It's 3 distinct moments, but for a lot of people, it all happens at the same time. So what the program does is it helps a person to learn how to find when they're angry, how to step back and ask themselves, what am I fearful of losing? What am I fearful of not getting? As I can learn how to identify my fears and then see what I need to do to alleviate them, then I don't have to turn it to anger. So the program helps a person learn how to identify those fears, and then it shows them tools that they can use to alleviate them so that they don't have to turn it to anger. Number 2, when I'm in a conflict with someone that I care about, it's going to cause me to not feel so good about myself. My self-esteem is going to take a dive. I'm not going to feel as good about myself like I do when we're not fighting or arguing. What some people do as a way of trying to avoid that conflict, especially with someone they care about, is they'll respect the needs and wants of the other person, give them what they want and need, but they won't respect the needs and wants of themselves and give them what they and ask for what they want and need. When I respect the needs and wants of the other person, and I don't respect my own needs and wants, we call that being passive. Other people, when there's a potential conflict, they respect their needs and wants, but they don't respect the needs and wants of the other person. I'm going to get what I want. I don't care if I have to knock you down, step on your toes. I'm going to get what I want. When I respect my needs and wants, and I don't respect the needs and wants of the other person, we call that being aggressive. And what the program does is it helps people to learn how to resolve conflict in a way that they're respecting their needs and wants, and they're respecting the needs and wants of the other person. When I resolve a conflict in that manner, we call that being assertive. And when I resolve a conflict in an assertive manner, I'm going to be able to look that other person in the eye and know that I'm treating them fairly. And I'm going to be able to look myself in the mirror and know that I'm treating myself fairly. And that's going to allow me to feel better about myself and to raise my self-esteem and or to maintain my self-esteem. So the program shows people tools that they can use to work through potential conflicts in a way that they're respecting their needs and wants, and they're respecting the needs and wants of the other person, and they're being assertive. We all have emotional wounds. No one goes through life without experiencing emotional wounds. When people die, that causes emotional wounds. When relationships break up, when people say and do hurtful things, when people make promises that they don't keep, all these things cause emotional wounds. What the program does is it helps a person to learn how to identify those emotional wounds, and then it shows them tools that they can use to alleviate those emotional wounds. Emotional wounds have some similarities to physical wounds like cuts, and in some ways they're dissimilar. They're dissimilar in that I can't look at you and see your emotional wounds like I can your physical wounds. I can't say, wow, you got an abandonment wound on your shoulder. That thing is deep. You can't look at me and see my emotional wounds. We can't look in the mirror and see our own emotional wounds the way we can our physical wounds. The way we find out about our emotional wounds is as I'm interacting with another person and all of a sudden something is said or done and I feel emotionally wounded. And then if I don't heal that, then something else is said or done. And then after a while, it's like I'm an emotional cripple, so to speak. I no longer have full range of motion. I'm not able to talk about this person without getting angry. I'm not able to be in this situation without being upset. I'm not able to go to this place without being sad. So the program is going to help that person learn how to identify those wounds and what they need to do to heal them so they can get that full range of motion back again. And they'll be able to talk about that person, be in that situation, or go to that place without having to be angry, upset, or sad. The way that emotional wounds are similar to physical wounds is I'm sure by now you've had cuts that you neglected. And dirt gets in there and it gets sore and infected and you just come close to touching it. And it's very painful. And you learn that if you get in there and you clean it out and you keep it clean, when you bump into it, it doesn't hurt. Well, nobody enjoys running that cut under the water to get the dirt out. It's painful. But you know that if you don't, you're just going to prolong the suffering and you're going to delay the healing. Well, it's the same thing with our emotional wounds. It's no fun to get in there and clean them out. It's painful. But if we don't, we're just going to prolong the emotional suffering and we're going to delay the emotional healing. So the program helps a person learn how to identify those wounds and then shows them tools that they can use to heal them so that they don't keep bumping into them from relationship to relationship to relationship or over and over again in the same relationship. Because what we'll do is we'll be in a relationship with someone. And then something will happen and we'll get emotionally wounded. So we leave that person and we embrace a new relationship. And then that new relationship does something that bumps into that old wound and I'm in pain and I'm blaming this new person for my pain when the real reason I'm in pain is because I never healed that wound from before. Because if I healed that wound from before, when they bumped into it, it wouldn't have hurt. So the program helps them to learn how to identify those emotional wounds and what they can do to heal them so that they don't keep bumping into it from relationship to relationship or over and over again in the same relationship. Number 5, it's really easy to blame the other person for my unhappiness. But what the program does is it helps that person to see what it is that they're doing or not doing that is or isn't causing unhappiness. I can change what I'm doing. I can't change what that other person's doing. But a lot of people spend time and energy trying to change that other person. And that other person is going to resist them, trying to control them. So they're not going to change. So that means the situation doesn't change. And then it's easy to blame that person for not changing as to why the situation isn't changing, as opposed to saying that, no, the reason why the situation isn't changing is because I'm not changing what I can change. So the program helps a person to see what they're doing or not doing that's causing them unhappiness, because that's something that they can change. Number 6, both are unable to see how they give their power and responsibility for their lives to the other. We do this in real subtle ways sometimes that we don't even realize. But if I'm a person that has the belief, you hit me, I'm going to hit you. You yell at me, I'm yelling right back at you. You give me the cold shoulder, I'm giving you the cold shoulder. Well, if I'm being that way, then who I'm being is someone who's going through life, giving all of my power away to everybody. Because what I'm saying in essence is anybody, you can make me hit you, yell at you, give you the cold shoulder anytime you want. All you have to do is do it to me first. And if I'm being that way, then who I'm being is someone who's going through life reacting to everything around me instead of responding. A reaction is an automatic, pre-programmed way of dealing with something. You hit me, I hit you. There's no thinking involved when I react. When I respond, I look at all of my choices, and then I pick the one that best suits my needs. I can hit you back. I can call the police. I can take a time out. I can end the relationship. I can insist that we both get counseling in order for the relationship to continue. So I look at all of my choices, and then I pick the one that best suits my needs. Responding requires thinking. Reacting, there is no thinking. So the program is going to help you to see where you're responding and where you're reacting, where you're giving your power away to other people's circumstances and situations and letting what they do dictate what I'm going to do and what I need to do to take that power back so that I'm dictating what I need to do. Because what we'll do sometimes is we'll say, well, they were being a jerk. That's why I was being a jerk. Well, if it's not okay to be a jerk, then just because they're being a jerk doesn't mean it's okay for me to be a jerk. So the program is going to help you to see where you're giving your power away to other people, circumstances, and situations, and letting what they do determine what I'm going to do and what I need to do to take my power back so that I'm the one who determines what I do. Number 7, it's really easy to expect the other person to do things to make my life fulfilled. But once again, the program is going to help the person see what they're doing or not doing that is or isn't causing fulfillment. I can change what I'm doing. I can't change what that other person's doing. We all want to be loved. And in doing this work, what I find that makes a person desperately want to be loved is that when you get down to it, they really don't know how to give love to themselves. They can say, yeah, I love myself, but they don't know how to give love to themselves. And love is like oxygen. If you don't get any oxygen, what's going to happen? You're going to die. Well, if I'm not able to get any oxygen or love on my own, and instead I rely on this other person as my source of oxygen or love, and then one day that person says, that's it, no more oxygen or love for you, you can see how I'm going to want to make that person stay in my life so I can keep getting that oxygen or love. By the same token, if I'm not able to give any oxygen or love to myself, and I rely on this other person as my source of oxygen or love, I may allow that other person to say or do abusive things to me because I'm hoping afterwards that I'm going to get that I'm going to get that love. So it doesn't matter if I'm the perpetrator of abuse or I'm the recipient of abuse. They're both two sides of the same coin. The coin being someone trying to get oxygen or love from the other person because they're not able to give that oxygen or love to themselves. So the program is going to help that person to learn how to give that love to themselves. And when I'm able to give that love to myself, then when that other person threatens to cut me off, I'm more likely to be able to have a response that would sound something similar to, well, if that's what you have to do, go ahead. Listen, why don't we sleep on it and talk about it tomorrow? I'm not going to feel like, oh, no, you're not. You're going to stay here. And by the same token, if I'm able to give that oxygen or love to myself, then when that other person is being verbally, emotionally, or physically abusive to me, I'm more likely to be able to draw a boundary and say, I don't deserve to be treated this way. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So the program is going to show a person how to give that love to themselves so they don't have to make someone stay in their life or allow someone who's being abusive to them to remain in their life, because they see that other person as their only resource for love. They're going to be able to see that, no, I am also a resource for that love. Number 10, both are unable to soothe themselves when feeling frightened, disappointed, or hurt. No one is going to go through life without being frightened, disappointed, or hurt. It's about learning how to soothe myself through my fears and disappointments and hurts so that I'm in control of myself as I'm working through it and not letting it get control of me and come out as anger or violence. It's like being at the ocean. When you're in that water and those waves come, they can do a real number on you. They can knock you down, turn you upside down. But you learn that when that wave starts to break, if I dive into that wave, then the water trickles over the top of me and I pop my head up on the other side. It doesn't have anywhere near the devastating impact on me like it does when I'm standing there and I'm trying to resist it. Well, it's the same thing with our fears and our disappointments and our hurts. When we can learn how to identify them and see what we need to do to work through them, they don't have anywhere near the devastating impact on us like they do when we try to resist them with our anger or by numbing out or using distractions or addictions. So the program helps a person learn how to identify those fears and disappointments and hurts and shows them tools they can use to work through them so that they're in control of themselves as they're working through it. They're not letting it get control of them and come out as anger or violence. So these are all 10 things that we address and what we do in the program. Do any of these sound of interest to you? So we can be reached on Facebook at Emotional Healing and Emotional Management. There's also a Twitter account. And there's a podcast called Checking In with John Anthony, Supportive Alliance, on Podbean. Or we can be reached at 215-750-0323 if you want to phone us. Or an email is contact@supportivealliance.com. Another if you have any questions, contact us and I'll be glad to answer them to the best of my abilities. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this whole video, and I hope that you found it helpful. And if you'd like to find out more, get a hold of us. Thank you.